I'm going to get started with a prayer, and then we'll go into it. The Lord be with you.
Also with you.
Let us pray. Gracious and loving God, we give thanks for this church and all of its ministries, for all the ways that we are serving you and witnessing to your kingdom here in Ivy. We ask that you bless our time together this morning. Open our hearts and our minds to your Spirit, and help us to collectively discern together our future as a congregation. All this we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, well, welcome. This is officially the first Rectors Forum, the first Sunday adult formation that we have had since March of 2020. So I think that's actually something to celebrate. Maybe we get a little collective round of applause. We're very excited to be bringing back all of these programs. It's been an interesting, to put it mildly, couple of years in which many things have happened. It's worth remembering what has happened in broad strokes over the last couple of years in terms of our Sunday experience. For a while, we were recording videos and putting them up on YouTube. Some of you will remember those videos. And of course, God always finds a way to give us what we need in any particular circumstance. And of course, what we needed was Father Rick, who actually knew something about technology. Back in March of 2020, and had all the equipment and helped us. And I learned all about acting and camera angles and lighting and all of that, and multiple takes. And somewhere there's a blooper reel. We'll share that with you because some funny things happen. And then when we were able to gather once again in person, we transitioned to drive-in church. And this is something that came from a collective discernment as a staff. We realized that given our space, we could gather in the parking lot and people could listen to the worship service on their radio or on Facebook Live. And we were so blessed to have Ron McCall, one of our parishioners, who is a master carpenter in many ways, build us that stage out there so that we could be visible to everybody in their cars. And I have to thank, of course, Rick again and all of our vergers and Amanda and Amanda's truck, because before we had the stage, we were preaching in the back of a pickup truck. Some of you may remember that. And before every service, I don't know if you remember this, we would, like roadies, take all of the audio equipment out, and we'd set it up, and we'd check the levels, and make sure all the lights worked, and everything. And we did this. We did this for many months. Who can forget the incredible Christmas Eve service, where it was raining cats and dogs, but through the advice of a parishioner, we were able to get a tent to cover the stage, and we were able to have a Christmas Eve service, our evening service, in the middle of a torrential downpour in the parking lot. And there is footage to prove it. It's on Facebook. You can still find it. And then when we had to pivot again, we ended up having a worship service out there by the playground. We got a tent. And even in the bitter cold, people showed up. We continued our community and our worship service. Jesus tells us that when 2 or 3 are gathered together in His name, He will be in the midst of us. And we continued our worship in a variety of ways over these past couple of years. And it's brought us to this moment, to this time. So there's much to celebrate. Through this, something amazing happened as well. Many new people found our community, perhaps in no small measure because we continued to gather in whatever form that we could. And we have seen, especially in the last year or so, an explosion of newcomers We had something like, 20 to 30 newcomers at our last newcomers gathering. Do you remember the exact number, Amanda?
I think it was like 25.
25. A huge number of new people. Different ages, different backgrounds. So people are finding us and coming into our community and deepening their relationship with God through this community. I want to highlight for you 5 major developments that have gone on over the last couple of years in addition to the ones I just mentioned. And then say a little bit about some visioning work we're doing, and then open it up to your questions. And I said this last week, and I do mean it. Whatever questions you have, please ask them. I'm happy to try to answer them, or Rick or Amanda or someone else can jump in as well. So the 5 major developments. The first thing I think we have to mention is that we have begun developing a preschool here at St. Paul's Ivy. Now this is something that this church has contemplated for decades now. Ever since we did the renovation of the Sunday school classrooms and that whole area down there, one of the possibilities was to have a preschool. That's why the driveway there is so well designed for cars to drop off kids and move on. This has been only possible because of the hard work of a number of people, including Melissa Kelly, I know she's there, and Allison Kretlow, and Audie Barlow, who's put in countless hours to support them in this effort. And I will tell you that starting a preschool is a little harder than you might think. Probably shouldn't be, but it is, especially in this particular county we find ourselves. So we're still in the process of officially starting the St. Paul's Ivy Preschool. We have to get a special permit from the county. They have to come out here and inspect the traffic patterns. We have to have a community meeting, on and on and on. But we're doing that process. We're making progress. Hopefully we'll have some critical meetings in the next couple of weeks or so. And in the interim, we are having what we're calling the Bridge Playgroup. So there is a Bridge Playgroup functioning here at St. Paul's Ivy, which is similar to a preschool, but is not officially the St. Paul's Ivy Preschool. And that started last week. So that is something to celebrate too. For the first time since that space was built, we now have a group of kids, preschool-age kids, who are being formed and educated. And we're hopeful that perhaps sometime in the spring we can officially declare the St. Paul's Ivy Preschool. But it is worth taking a moment to just reflect on this development because it is a long goal that we have had for several decades now that is coming to fruition. The second big thing that has happened is that we hired a director of communications. I know Lisa's around here somewhere.
She's taking photos.
She's taking photos, great. One of the things that we realized during the pandemic was that we needed to seriously up our communications game here at St. Paul's Ivy. We are just more digital these days than ever before. More is happening online. Communications needs to be in multiple platforms, needs to reach multiple different groups. We realized this actually when Elizabeth was here and was helping us develop our bulletins and our communications information. And we realized that this was really a full-time position, given all the different dimensions. And so we did a national search, and Mother Amanda led that effort. And we had some wonderful candidates and went through a great process. And we ended up with Lisa, who has been fantastic and an incredible addition to our church. You can see it all around if you just look. Look at the vine and the quality of the vine. The website has been upgraded significantly and is much more user-friendly, and we've been helped by that by a parishioner as well. The bulletins are fantastic.
Banco.
Right, we just started the Banco online giving. You can see that in your bulletin. There's a QR code, there's a possibility for text to give. You will notice posters all around. Her knowledge of IT, of various software applications, of marketing and communications and branding has been a breath of fresh air for our staff and our community, and you will continue to see the influence of that. But I think it's already self-evident in so many communication materials that we have seen over the last couple of months. Third, we had a significant transition in the financial department, if you will. Near the beginning of the pandemic, our longtime treasurer, had a sudden health issue. And when I say long time, I mean long time. He's been here for multiple decades and essentially ran the entire financial bookkeeping, accounting portions of our life here. We had not just a kind of volunteer lay treasurer, but we had somebody who was essentially functioning as an employee, doing all the accounting, all the bookkeeping for us. But of course, I'm talking about Vic Dandridge. In this sudden transition, he had a health issue, as I said. We had to scramble a bit, but fortunately, Scott Gillespie was able to step up. He had been sort of assistant treasurer, so he knew a little bit about how it worked. And he was able to help us through the pandemic period, where a lot of strange things were happening in terms of finances. Some of you may remember all those government programs, right? PPP loans, you all remember that? They had to apply for one of those PPP loans, which turned out to be a lifesaver one year. It allowed us to have a significant surplus that year. So we were very thankful for that. And he helped keep the accounting system running, keep payroll running, all of that. But of course, it's hard to have a lay volunteer do what Vic did. As I said, Vic was essentially like an employee. And so over the last year, we have been developing a new arrangement for our accounting and finance, and we have hired an outside accountant bookkeeper named Darcy, who has worked for Church of Our Savior for many years. That's how we got connected to her. And she has taken over payroll, she has taken over developing our financial statements and so forth, and then she is supervised by Scott. We're still working out the kinks in this arrangement, but we're well on our way. I would anticipate probably by the end of this year, we'll have a smooth system for who's playing what role in our accounting. Darcy doing a lot of the accounting, bookkeeping, Scott doing supervision and analysis of the financial statements for, say, the vestry meetings each month, and so forth. So that's a huge transition for us, but I think the good news is that our finances have remained strong. We have a sizable amount of money in savings. Actually, we have this category that is essentially surpluses from previous years that's around $200,000. So whatever comes in the next year or so, or what we've dealt with in the past couple of years, we have a cushion that we can rely on as well. So the financial state of the church is strong. The fourth thing I want to mention is buildings and grounds. We, I think, made a very wise decision during the pandemic to use that time to renovate our space. And we've got some of those folks here with us, Kirk back there, Kirk Train, who led that project. We significantly renovated the sanctuary. Let's remember what it was like. The floors did not look like this. The carpet did not look like this. These did not look so nice. These pews were beat up. There were holes in various parts in the walls. We made a significant transition in the space here. The baptismal font was up against the lectern. We moved it out. created some additional space here so that when we have baptisms, they're visible to the whole congregation, emphasizing our oneness in Christ. And we had a parishioner donate a piano, and we made space for that. We had no piano before this renovation, and this piano has been, I think, a great addition to our life here musically, especially at the 8:15 service. There were many, many stuffs in the floor up here, which you probably didn't see, maybe you did, but we saw them every Sunday. Really? Right. Repainted the walls. Refinished the wood in a variety of places. The sanctuary looks beautiful as a result. And we also built back there, through Amanda's guidance, a variety of storage areas. Do you all remember how cluttered it was back there? Things just piled all around, and then look at it now. It's beautiful. There was a table over there, and those folks on that table. It was just stuff everywhere. And then, of course, we did a major renovation as part of this project in the parish hall. Do you remember how the floor would shake if you put a little weight on it? Does anyone remember that? It kind of felt like it might break at certain points. We replaced the floor. There was some mold in the ceilings and tiles. We fixed that. The space looks beautiful. And this is a major project, of course, and it's something we were only able to do because we had the time in which people were not gathered in those spaces. So we took advantage of that, and it was a significant renovation. The work of buildings and grounds, of course, always continues. There are always things that need to be done. And we have a committee here that has a list of projects and is working on that. One of the projects that will be tackled soon is the parking lot, to figure out how to make that space, especially around the lights and the trees there, look a little bit nicer and easier to maintain. We're going to fix many of those signs that have deteriorated, handicap signs and visitor signs and so forth. We're going to keep sprucing up the space. And of course, I have to mention our beloved parishioner, Tommy P., who, with his son, has kept our graveyard looking fantastic, and is still going strong in his mid-90s. Absolutely incredible. And then lastly, I want to mention the transition in the music program. So, as you may know, our Director of Music Ministries, who was here for about 10 years, resigned a few months back, and we have embarked since that time on a search for a new Director of Music Ministry here. And so we've had a variety of subs and supply musicians. We're taking a significant amount of time to do this search, to do a national search and find the right candidate for this moment. But we've come across some great musicians during that process. For instance, I think I just have to mention our current organist, who is up there, is a 16-year-old student at Woodbury Forest, and one of the best organists I've heard. There's some great talent out there, and it's been a joy to get to know John. But we are involved in this search, and we have a great committee of folks representing a cross-section of the church. Debbie Weaver, Stephen Geiger, Ann Crosby, Joan Leibel, Daniel Heyer, and Christian Simmers. So different ages, different backgrounds, different amount of time here at the church. And the committee has so far led 4 focus groups with various constituencies in the church, the choir, the staff, the vestry, and then the families of children who might be involved in the children's choir, to gather their sense of what the church is looking for at this moment in its music program. We also disseminated a congregational survey. Hopefully some of you saw that. We actually got 60 responses, so that's very good. A lot of great data. So we have a very good sense of what the congregation is looking for in this position. And we will go live with a posting of the job as widely as we can on September 15th, so in just a few days. And then we'll take a month or so to receive applications. We will interview the various candidates, and we will likely bring in 2 to 3 individuals to have a sort of audition, if you will, and lead the choir. And our hope is that by the end of the year, we will have somebody who has accepted the position and fits with what we are looking for as a congregation. Over the next couple of months, as we're going through this process, John will be with us into October. And then in early October, Alice Lehman, who was the organist here many years ago, but is retired, is coming out of retirement for about 3 months to serve as our organist and to lead our choir. And her principal role, in addition to leading the choir and playing the organ, is to build up the choir, to get it ready for the new director of music ministry. So she is going to go out and recruit new section leaders for the choir. And if she hears you singing beautifully on a Sunday, she might tap you on the shoulder and say, "Have you ever considered singing alongside this choir?" All right. Lastly, before I turn it over to questions, I want you to know that we have begun a visioning process as we look forward to the future. Every staff member has taken time to do some visioning in the self context, to think about their role here and the best way to live into their role as we go forward. We're going to do that visioning work as a team, the staff will. And then ultimately, we'll do some of that visioning work as an organization, as the church, to kind of figure out what are the next steps for this congregation. Who are we going to be as we go into this new future post-pandemic? So you will hear more about that work, but it's been very illuminating and exciting. See Rick here. Rick, we had a wonderful visioning session, and some really interesting new stuff came out of it that I think you'll all hear about in a couple of weeks. So it's exciting work, and I'm giving each staff member an opportunity to sort of dream and to envision their role in a new way. Okay, those are some of the major developments, highlights, and things that are ongoing that I wanted to make sure you were aware of. And I want to give you some time now, about 15, 20 minutes, to ask any questions you might have, and I'll rely on my colleagues to join in if I don't know the answer. Yes, Ruth Mary.
Do we have any plans for a columbarium, and are they really expensive to build?
Oh, great question. So, columbarium, well, they are very expensive. My understanding is they're about several $100,000.
What?
For a nice one. So, it has been discussed. It is something we could, in theory, do. But I think we would need a lot more discernment as a church if that was the right path to go. But it is a topic that has been on our radar. You're not the first person to mention it. And we do have places we could put a columbarium.
Justin, can you define columbarium?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so it's rather than putting an urn in the ground, which is what we tend to do here, or a casket, of course. It would be a structure that you build. It's usually a very sizable structure, very solid, in which you place the urn in that structure, and has various spaces for this. Think Arlington Cemetery has this, if you've ever been there. And then there's engravings on the outside and so forth. Great, thank you. Any other questions? Yes?
Justin, I have 2 questions. Our membership numbers and our pledging, how do they compare pre-pandemic to what they are today? And then on the preschool, are we able to offer reduced fees for families that can't afford?
Yeah. I'll start with the second question. So yes, we have scholarship money that we have used for various scholarships over the years. Some of you will know that we had a scholarship program connected to the local high school, and we would help people who were moving into community college and so forth to provide scholarships. We have decided to transition that money to scholarships for the preschool. So yes, we do have something like $60,000 off the top of my head that can go to support scholarships for the preschool students. So that's a topic we've discussed. On the first question, it's a little bit hard to answer the membership question, and I'll explain why. Membership is a very fuzzy category in the Episcopal Church. I can't really even tell you exactly how many members are in this congregation. Generally speaking, the way that we measure congregational health is in attendance on Sunday morning, or what we call ASA, Average Sunday Attendance. Average Sunday attendance definitely went down during the pandemic. Prior to the pandemic, our average Sunday attendance was about 230 people. We are not back up to that yet, but we're showing lots of signs that we're getting in that direction, particularly in the last couple of months, actually. As I said, there have been many newcomers that have come to the church. We will see what happens, though, this fall. This is, I think, a significant moment for us. We've got our formation programs back. Will people come back and participate in them again? We will see. If you know of St. Paul's Ivy parishioners that you haven't seen in a couple of years, feel free to say, hey, I haven't seen you in a couple of years. What's going on? I think you will find that perhaps for many of them, they've simply gotten out of the habit. You know, the pandemic reoriented people's lives. And an invitation to return would be great. You all are as much a part of that as I am, or Amanda, or Rick. The reason membership is fuzzy in the Episcopal Church is that it basically comes down to just baptism. If you are baptized and you are recorded in the book, you're a member. That's a pretty loose definition of membership. And so one of the things that actually we have talked about, and Amanda and I have talked about this for years, even before we were here at St. Paul's Ivy, is developing clearer definitions around what it means to be a member of the church. And I think, to be honest with you, definitions that ask more of people. That, you know, Christian discipleship means something. It means prioritizing worship and God. It means giving generously of your time, talent, and treasure to the work of God in the world. So it's more, in a sense, than just being baptized. As important as that is, that's the beginning of the Christian journey. And so that's an ongoing conversation, but our national standards around membership are very loose. Very, very loose. To be a confirmed communicant in good standing, which is like you're totally doing great, you need to come to church 3 times a year and be known to the treasurer and be confirmed. So you can come on Christmas, Easter, one other service, and give $5 to the church, and you are confirmed communicant. So I think this is a conversation not just for our church, but for the national church to think about. In terms of giving has been basically good. It's been pretty steady in terms of pledges. I don't have off the top of my head the exact number of pledging units. But with that said, bringing on a full-time director of communications and responding to all the challenges of the pandemic, we're going to have to keep being mindful of our budget, and we will need people of this church to be generous as we move into 2023, especially in hiring a new director of music ministries. You may not know this, that Daniel, who was here, was only half-time. And that meant that there were limits to what he could do for our music program. He couldn't spend huge amounts of time going out and recruiting people to join the choir or adding additional musical events to our life here. And so we're looking at hiring somebody more like 3/4 time to maybe even full-time. And that's going to cause us, or require us, to have to stretch a little bit. But the potential for this church is immense musically. We could be a church that is known for our music program. We could have incredible concerts in this space. We have an amazing organ that we've just recently refurbished, too. John, it's a good organ, isn't it?
Yes.
That's what he tells me. I mean, I'm not an expert, but that's what the people say. Let's imagine that. What could that look like? What if this church was known for its youth choir, for its children's choir, for its adult choir, for its musical program, for its choral anthems? Imagine. So there's a lot of possibility. Thank you. What other questions do you have? Don't be shy. Yes.
Hi, Trevor Diaz, Elder Millennial, New York Church.
Yes. Just like me, elder millennial.
I don't like carrying around money, checkbooks. I mean, I've got them, but
Yes.
yeah. Online giving.
Yes.
Is this something that I could do so that I don't have to remember? I just have to go in.
Yes. Well, your question is well timed, Trevor, because we just started that a couple weeks ago. In your bulletin, you will see that there is a QR code in the offertory section. So you can scan the QR code, it takes you right to a page on our website where you can make an online donation. You can do that through your credit card or your bank account. There's also a text to give option if that's something you're comfortable with. So yes, online giving is available through our website, and we're using a company called Vanco. Yes.
Just to clarify, I thought you had said that that is good for one-time donations, but if you want to give monthly, then you should set that up through your bank.
Okay, yes. So you can use it, in truth, you can use it for anything, okay? But for your annual pledges, we would encourage you to do a direct check from your bank instead, because there are no fees associated with that. Of course, if you give with a credit card, you have to pay a transaction fee. So it's much easier for us, especially thinking about cash flow, if you designate a certain maybe monthly or weekly amount that your bank automatically directs towards the church. That is the best option for us. Yes?
Where can I get that information?
Well, let's see. You can go simply to your bank. You can log on and just say you want to send X dollars or X amount, whatever time frame, and just enter the address, and a check will be sent with that amount. That's how I give to this church, for instance. That's how Lena and I give. Yeah.
No, I was just backing you up. That's exactly what you do.
Yeah. It's very straightforward. Yeah. I don't think you can Venmo us yet for minimum.
That's what I was just saying, because Venmo is free for nonprofits.
Oh, okay. So that's another thing and I need to say, of course, Lisa was instrumental in helping us get this going. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were doing a one-off fundraiser, and we didn't have an easy way for people to give to it. So this is now an option for folks. Oh, what do we got there?
There are cards back here for Banco if you want to learn more about it.
There you go, Trevor.
Yeah. Yes.
Justin, does Bishop Curry ever receive could we have a road trip to meet Bishop Curry? Does he ever receive parish groups and talk to individual Episcopal church groups, or is he just too busy with that?
He does go to churches all over. Bishop Curry is the presiding bishop, so he's sort of the head bishop, if you will, of the Episcopal Church. He has an office in New York City, but I think he lives actually in North Carolina. Generally speaking, the bishops will go to churches if they have a huge celebration, like 250th anniversary, 300th anniversary. You might get the presiding bishop to come. The last time the presiding bishop, I think, was here in Charlottesville was the events around 2017. And he came to St. Paul's Memorial. So, of course, you all remember that. So, I don't know. We could see about making a pilgrimage to 815. I know an employee there. Elena and I know an employee. It was Elena's roommate in New York City for a year. So, maybe. Yeah. Great. Any other questions? Oh, yes.
We used to go to Tanzania all the time, and so right now, what is our commitment to the village?
Yeah, well, we, Debbie, I know you're here too, you can speak to it. Debbie is taking the lead on that. So during the pandemic, we were not able to make trips there. And I'm not even sure exactly what the current status is with the pandemic in Tanzania. The current bishop who did come to visit, you may remember that, I think right before the pandemic, his emphasis is on agricultural sustainability, agricultural development, and he is sunsetting the Carpenter's Kids program. So we're looking at transitioning into a new mission partnership with Nizali, the church in St. Paul's that we've been partnered with, and with the Diocese of Central Tanganyika. And Debbie is working on that with a couple of folks. Debbie, do you want to add anything to it?
Thanks for asking, Gina. We're just in the process of doing a feasibility study in order to figure out who we would be connected with. The priest in the village we worked with over a long period of time, Pastor Emmanuel Denver, has actually been transitioned to another church in Dodoma. So we need to make contact with the new priest, we need to develop a relationship, we need to contact the bishop's office, and work through the channels, the appropriate channels, to restore our mission work there.
And vestry members, my hope is to bring before you that plan once all the details are put in place for you all to look at and discuss as well. So it's sort of a revision going on right now.
Those 4 to 5.
Yes.
And so, if you have on educational.
Well, it's a different mission partnership, but yes, it has an education. I mean, that's a key element of it. Yeah. So that's our national partnership, and then this would be our international. Yes.
Do you have any programs or thoughts programs in other churches in the area, either Preschool or not?
Yeah. So we have a relationship with Mount Calvary Baptist Church, which is just down the road from us. We've done some joint worship services together, and we are in discussion of having a joint Bible study with them, which would probably be on Zoom. So that's one church that we have been building our connection to. We're connected to Trinity Episcopal Church downtown through a program called Bread and Roses. And we have a new parishioner who wants to grow all sorts of crops on his property and contribute them as part of the Bread and Roses ministry that Trinity runs. Those are the two churches that I know we're in connection with right now, locally. For a season, and maybe this is something that can be resurrected, we were in connection with Olivet and several other churches, Olivet Presbyterian, doing joint worship services together around Thanksgiving. And it may be that we can do that again, but then the pandemic hit. Some of you will remember we had the first one here right before the pandemic hit, in which we had folks from several different local churches come and gather, and we did some outreach work with them as well. So those are the ones that immediately come to mind. I don't know if we've, anything else, do you want, Debbie?
I was thinking about EFM.
Oh, yes, EFM, yeah.
We have 4 different churches represented in the education
Yeah.
program.
So we run the EFM program here, and then we have parishioners from other churches who participate as well. So, pre-pandemic, we would have evensong services occasionally and things like that, and we would do those services with St. Paul's Memorial and Christ Church downtown. Yes?
How's St. James doing?
St. James in Philadelphia? St. James School in Philadelphia and Church is one of our mission partners, our national mission partner. We do mission trips there in the summer as well that have kind of youth focus, but they're intergenerational. They are doing very well. In fact, they are in the process of acquiring a chemical factory right next to the campus and converting it into possibly a high school.
Wow.
They have also just completed a major renovation project on a community center, or a major building project, not renovation, building project on a community center, because St. James' mission is not just to educate fourth graders through 8th grade and then launch them into high school and college and so forth, but it's also to serve the whole community. And so this community center has a variety of programs to serve the needs of members of that community. If you don't know, St. James School is an amazing institution, and they serve kids in a very low-income, under-resourced area of northern Philadelphia, within a 2-mile radius of the school, and it's tuition-free. And these are kids who, in all likelihood, probably won't graduate from high school, let alone go off to college. And this school prepares them in a holistic way for getting into high school that will be able to launch them potentially into college. And the school stays with them through this whole process, into high school, into college, this kind of mentor program. I was up there with Amanda back in May, and they now have individuals who are in college and about to graduate. One was studying neuroscience, I remember, and really just amazing work. So it's absolutely transforming lives and transforming the community. Yeah.
I don't know if you want to share the 5K benefit run.
Oh, yeah,
We
yeah.
had a great time. We went last year, took the kids. I mean, it wasn't like an official 5K course, and we made a mistake, and I think we only did 3K, but it was perfect for our family. Where you can contribute.
If you would like to run a 5K
It was
race
fun.
in Philadelphia in November, we might go again.
Yeah.
I will send you, I can send the information out, and you all can see if you want to do it. It's really fun. The area is actually known as Paradise, that's the nickname, because it's surrounded by these historic graveyards. And so the 5K race was actually through one of the historic Philadelphia graveyards, which looks out over the Schuylkill River, which if you know anybody does crew, that's where crew teams tend to race and stuff like that. Right. All right, any final questions? All right, well, of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. Lance Kimbrough, your senior warden, is right here. You can reach out to him. Amanda or Lisa would be happy to answer the questions to the best of our abilities. Thank you, everyone.